Hey guys, we are hitting the road yet again. I feel like we've been on the road a lot lately, which is strange for me. So it's always exciting when I get out of the house, off of the farm. Well, today we are headed to the Midwest Grazing and Soil Health Summit, and I am so excited. I haven't been to the summit in years because, farm happened, husband, kids, all that stuff. I used to go every single year. Back it was just the Midwest Soil Health Summit, but now they've included grazing, which of course is very near and dear to my heart as someone who raises cows and tries to do so in a responsible way. And this year it's super exciting because the keynote speaker this year, well, there's a bunch of really great speakers. We'll talk about all of them in a little bit, but the keynote speaker this year is Grandin, and she's giving 2 keynotes, and they're also showing the new documentary about her, and the filmmaker is going to be there and everything, and a book. So there's just so many cool things that are happening. And so I was lucky enough to actually receive a scholarship to attend this conference. Otherwise, it just wouldn't have really been, available to us right now. So I'm so excited to go, and I'm going to tell you about the different organizations that made it possible for me to attend, because they're all super cool. And even if you don't live in Minnesota, but if you are in just like the Midwest, or you're interested in grazing and soil health and things like that, this is a super great conference. And so I'm going to show you as much as I can, take you along for as much of it as I can, so you can kind of get your own, living vicariously experience. Now, this conference takes place in Wilmer, Minnesota. It's kind of southwestern-ish Minnesota. It is the Midwest Grazing and Soil Health Summit, so they're trying to make it sort of accessible, at least for folks maybe Iowa and the Dakotas, to make it there. I just filmed this crow. It was on my way. I was about 2 hours to the north of here. This is in Belgrade, Minnesota, and I thought it was just really impressive. Anyway, so the event is hosted by the Sustainable Farming Association of Minnesota. They're an organization that made it possible for me to attend. You should really just check out their website. Tons of resources if you're interested in sustainable agriculture. And I had to get there about an hour early because those of us who were there on scholarship had sort of a get-together an hour beforehand. It was made possible by Minnesota Women in Conservation, where they connect women with resources in terms of financing, grants, programs, things to help them in their goal of being good conservators of land, however that looks. And it was a pretty full conference. This is everybody there for sort of the opening session. A few hundred people for sure. This was one of our opening keynotes, and this one was really interesting. It was 45 minutes long, so I can't get into all the details, but talking about how fungi work with plants and exchanging nitrogen and carbon, and how plants communicate through vibration frequencies and mycorrhizal fungi. It was super fascinating. The next session I hopped into was with Brian Simon, talking about agroforestry and silvopasture. Super fascinating. My big key takeaway from here is it can do amazing things, but it takes a long time. It's like a 7 to 10 year long game. There are, of course, like at any conference, there's lots of booths that you can check out. Here is Renewing the Countryside, which is sort of the parent nonprofit of Minwick. And Renewing the Countryside, they're really focused on really developing rural economies, agriculture, entrepreneurship, all kinds of stuff. Again, another great nonprofit to check out no matter where you live. And of course, this whole summit conference is focused on soil health. And so this is actually on the cover of the little notebooks as well that they gave us. Here's my friend Jerry, and then Richard and Dean hopping in. Just a little bit of hopping into our selfie there. That's honestly one of my favorite things about these conferences, is all the kind of familiar faces you get to see from over the years. And I've known Jerry for a really long time. And so there were just some really neat organizations here with a lot of information about how they can provide resources for people who are interested in sustainably grazing with animals, or working on soil health in terms of no-till and cover cropping and integrating animals as well, which is kind of a key from one of the other sessions I went to. I'll talk to in a little bit. Tons of really fun freebies, of course, at these things. And I always love how there's organizations you wouldn't even, like Ducks Unlimited, I guess. I wouldn't even think of being there. Of course, Farmers Union is there. I'm a Farmers Union member. And so just there's plenty of time in between sessions to come and check out all the really great free resources that are there, and just to see the different organizations that can support you if you're interested in really focusing on soil health. This was super cool, showing how these cotton underwear and soil that really has no biology alive in it anymore, the underwear, nothing happens, and in healthy soil with kind of living microbes in there, how it breaks down the underwear. Now, this one, admittedly, the keynote, he said that this was a big numbers one. I am not a numbers person. And so this one, the big key takeaway was that certainly it can work, but you need certain things kind of put together in terms of making it profitable with not tilling. And of course, we're cutting into Grandin here already. Here, I'm in line to do the book signing and a film screening we had that night. And of course, that night I picked up some books for my kids. I brought a book of my own that I already had. And then I had her sign these books for my children. The next day when she was back at the conference, I got 2 more books for myself. I kind of busted my book budget a little bit here, but it was so hard not to because Temple was so incredible. So this is the first night of the conference. It was such a busy, long day. It was really fun and great. So they had a film screening that night after the conference of a new Temple Grandin documentary. The documentary is about an hour long. She has such an inspiring and cool story. If you don't know it, there's of course the HBO film about her, which I recommend to everyone and anybody. After the film, this gentleman was one of the producers, kind of creators of it. And then, of course, there is Dr. Grandin herself there to kind of talk about the film and different aspects of it. And so it was a very late night. Didn't get back to my hotel until like 10:30. I was so tired. I'm normally in bed by about 9:30, but well worth it. And the next day, of course, Temple gave one of her first of her 2 different keynotes. And this was such a great keynote where she was talking about how different brains work. Of course, Temple has autism, or Dr. Grandin has autism. And I spent my whole life being ashamed of how I do not get algebra or advanced math. And she talked about how that's very normal. And she really has a big problem with advanced math courses because it's really weeding out people who are great thinkers. I'm not saying I'm like a great thinker, but how she's saying that people have these wonderful minds in terms of other skills, like those advanced math courses, they don't make sense. And she was joking. She said, I know tons of veterinarians and not a single one of them uses calculus, but yet calculus is required to graduate, with a degree in veterinary medicine. So it was a really great talk learning about how different brains work and how different things make sense to different people and how you need all these people together to kind of make society function better. And this was a grazing educational trailer they have in Minnesota that goes around with all sorts of equipment and stuff. If you are doing sort of rotational grazing and intensive grazing, some different tools and things that you might use, you can kind of check out, give them a try. This session was really interesting. This guy, he started farming a few years before me. They started with a few cows, and now they have just tons of animals and really impressive enterprises. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the food. They really feed you well. This is just the one lunch I caught on camera. And then there's lots of great snacks and things at the conference too. Now, Temple, her second talk was focused on animal handling and animal management, and just kind of some of the basics of that and things we look for. And of course, things that she has completely revolutionized, starting back in the 1970s or 60s, even maybe revolutionized the way we work with animals and handle animals, which was really cool. And so it was just overall an incredible conference. I left with people's contact information that I'm in touch with now after the conference, left super inspired by Dr. Grandin's talks, of course. And I also got to see some people I haven't seen in a long time, find some resources that I'm really excited to check out and follow up with. Overall, it was just such a really great conference. So if you are in the Midwest and interested in attending this conference next year, check out the Sustainable Farming Association website. And again, a humongous thank you to the Sustainable Farming Association, to Renewing the Countryside, and of course to Minwick for making it possible for me to attend. If you have any questions at all about the conference, pop them below in the comment section below. I am super happy to talk more about the conference.